Hello there, good morning and welcome. It's Sunday the 23rd of January 2022. It's 10 to 10 in the morning and it's rather grey and there's a slight sort of mistiness in the air here and no sunshine, so it feels cool. In fact, the computer's telling me it's 4 degrees Celsius out, which is pretty chilly. But it's Sunday and it's always sunny where I do art as far as I'm concerned. So thank you to everybody who's subscribed and liked my videos. Big, huge thank you to you all. And thank you for joining me for this one. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. At the moment, I'm doing videos just about every day. Well, actually every day I have done for a while. The reason for that is because every morning I spend some time doing what I would describe as warm-up art or personal art before I move on to anything that is business-based. So it's sheer pleasure. Mind you, I end the day doing that, but I find this is better for me to do in the morning because there is a better chance that I might make sense, because as I tire through the day, my ability to string words together can diminish somewhat. Not that I'm very good some mornings, especially if I've got some brain fog. So thank you once again. If you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up. It all helps with YouTube to share videos with people who might like this kind of video. So it's still January, so it's still Fragments for Your Imagination Challenge. And today it's just one fragment. Yesterday was a bit crazy. And when I saw this one, I was almost tempted to go, okay, I'm going to revisit one of the favourite ones from yesterday. But I didn't. I thought, right, let's have a look and see what I can do with this. It's called Sharpenz and it's by Ilidica Boyd, CZT. And it's been inspired by pencil sharpenings. So, of course, I've drawn it in my own way and it looks upside down. It looks like some strange mountain. So let's try. Let me show you how it's sort of like drawn. So start with a triangle. We do something that looks like the pencil. It's like the point of a pencil. And then, you know how the ends of pencil sharpenings are all raggedy. So that's what we're going to do at the end here, is make that all raggedy. But there's a nice straight edge on the other side, on the outside of it, just to make sure that it can be popped into fragments, or not fragments, into a reticulum easily. And with mine, I just put an extra one there, and I think I'm tempted to just colour that in as if to make it feel like it's a coloured pencil or a drawing pencil, some kind of pencil rather, any kind of wood-based pencil. This one I'm going to completely colour that in, and perhaps instead of having it all raggedy like that, I know that with some pencil sharpeners you get a very neat and tidy kind of pattern like that. Now I think I prefer that without those lines in some way. So let's have a look at what we're doing. I'm going to colour that tip in, but I am going to pop that line in, and I'm again going to do this. But I think I'm going to pop it up against the edge, and let me break out a finer pen. And yep, I've switched back to the Sakura pens. I've got 04 Pigma Sensei and an 01 Pigma Micron, because my fountain pen is there, but it's the thicker one. I'm not quite sure where I left the other one, and these work just as well. If anything, I think today I'm appreciating the relatively lightweightness of them compared to the more heavy weight of the fountain pen. So I've done the same basic idea here, changed what pattern is inside the tip, that little segment of a circle in the tip and just put a band in there because, well, I can. And with these, I'm going to turn them into mini crescent moons because, well, we can. And I'm going to do that one again. So how did I do that? I did that way. And I'm going to put much smaller circles in there. I think I'll make this one that much bigger. And what I'm going to do here is give a bigger sparkle on the edge. And I think as well with that one, I'm going to pop these lines in as well. So it starts to look like, yeah, we've got pencil sharpenings, but now we've got pencils within the pencil sharpenings. It's getting interesting. Okie dokes. Next one. Let me do... Ooh, that's really unpleasant. Right, let's try again. Because I want perhaps a U shape there and then one that goes to the sides. That'll work. That's fine. Yeah, didn't think of that one carefully enough, did I? And perhaps instead of having this bowing out, how about if we have it going the opposite way, like these? I'm not entirely sure. I have no idea how this is going to work out. But do I ever? No, I just go with it. So, actually, that's interesting. By inverting those lines, we get something completely different. But the construction is basically the same kind of method, isn't it? So let me just pop that there. I'll pop those in. These. So I've got something that's more flowery. In fact, first when I saw this, the original pattern, I thought, that looks a bit like a shuttlecock. You know, the shuttlecock is the thing they use in badminton. It's sort of like got a heavy end and then feathers sticking out from the top. If you've, you know, the old-fashioned ones be feathers, the modern ones sort of like got, I don't know, like a netting or something around it. Well, you know, those are the ones I remember from school. I've got no idea what they look like these days. And that, I just thought, well, that looks like a shuttlecock. Why is it called Sharpenz? And then I read the blurb and I thought, oh, that makes sense. And when I turned it upside down, I thought, oh, that looks like a mountain with trees in front of it. Oh, we're going scenic as well. It's a lot of these patterns, different people will see different things in them, which is fascinating. And it just shows how our brains, I've said this many, many times, but our brains are brilliant at pattern matching. That's why we can look at abstract patterned wallpaper and see faces or other things in there, because our brains will go, I can't make sense of this, so what does it look like? And it was once described to me, I did a course on hypnotherapy, and they said, our brains are really lazy. They don't, you know, if they can't recognise something, they'll either ignore it or they'll suggest that it looks like this, so that's what it must be. But when we look at clouds, they're just random shapes in the sky. But our brains just go, oh, that one looks like a dragon, or that looks like a woman with her hair flowing behind her, and things like that. You know, and the same with landscapes and so on. There's a posh name for it. I think it's pareidolia. And it's just what our brains are really good at. And I mentioned this the other day with things like optical illusions, where if you, obviously I was going to do something with this piece, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to draw a triangle here because this will help me. If we draw a triangle and place some circles at the edge, or even a square, but with the wedges out, where as if there's a bite been taken out of the circle. Then if I remove those pencil lines, which I will do, And I run the risk of smudging some ink here, but you'll get the idea. There you see. Pencil line's gone. No triangle, no square there. But that makes no difference because our eyes go, oh, that looks like a triangle or a square. It creates that shape inside. There's no lines there, but it creates that shape. That's pattern matching. That's pareidolia in action, which is good fun. This looks like a segment now of a flower. They both do. And I quite like that as well, because if we were to pop these into a reticulum, then that repetition would create something that is vaguely flower shaped. Okay, what else? So let's do another triangle. And how about popping these at each corner, and I'm going to draw a little triangle in the middle, and I'll use my fine pen. Now then, which way was the way for this? Perhaps I ought to do that. Oh, so I'll make a mess. Yeah, that would work better at 90 degrees. And then I'm going to, this one, which one did I like? This one. This is where those outer curves point towards the corner, so we'll get something like this. So something interesting, perhaps. And when the ink's completely dry, I will remove the pencil marks. No, perhaps not, because I don't need to, I'll leave them there for me to know that that's what I did. But I think what I'll actually do is just pop a little triangle in there as well. Okie dokes. Now, I was thinking about, can I pop one? Yeah, let's pop that shape on one edge. And I am going to draw some lines radiating off. And then I'm going to pop that kind of shape in there. Now that worked better than I thought it would. Because that has ended up looking, yeah, that worked out better than I thought it would. It's completely different to the original and to some of the variations, but it is working on that, it's changing things and seeing what happens. It's the what ifs. And that's an interesting what if. It's almost like we've got partial pencils going towards that bit in the middle, or logs, if you like. So that's an interesting one. Okie dokes. Let's pop one in the centre here, and one on the corner. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to pop a line in the middle, and I'm going to, I think I'll do zigzags with pointy ends, not pointy, rounded ends, and perhaps echo that. Not sure that works, but the idea is we've got, perhaps two of those coming together, or I don't know. It's just trying something out. How could I make this work? Try something else that just came to me, perhaps. Is to, okay, how could, this one can go like that. Don't know if there's any mileage in that one. I just thought I'd give it a go. Okay, is there anything else I can do with these? Not really. Well, I mean, I've deviated quite. If you think about this compared to this, you wonder how on earth do I get from there to there? The answer is through a convoluted line, a little coddywomple. So I'm just looking and thinking about, we'll complete this one. Because pencil sharpenings are often raggedy, aren't they? And you often get that little hint of a sort of like wood edge, or you know, before you hit the coloured part. Okie dokes. Let's have a look at squares. How on earth could this? Well, I think it's not trying to replicate the idea that we've, you know, this original one where we've got one corner that looks like a pencil and the others don't. I think I'm going to start by going, right, we're going to do every corner. So I did do that in one there. And I'll pop a square in the middle. Could have done with a bigger square in the middle, because I'm not getting that kind of shape I wanted that would sort of like look like, yeah, I'll show you what I mean, because I'm going to do it again. I'm losing my ability to speak. I'm going to go from the centre of each corner, go each side. This one may be just too big, we'll see. Actually, that works quite nicely. Put that there. So that's an interesting one. And if I wanted to make those look more pencil-like, I could add those curves in. So let me do that on another one. And this time, I will have that inner square just a weeny bit smaller than the original first square. I'll put the diagonal lines in, and then I'll go with 2 on either side to begin with, and then I'll join the corners, perhaps to the outside edge of those black semicircles. So that works in a different way. Okay. In hindsight, that central line doesn't help it feel like a pencil. It's the way I draw pencils in doodly stuff, is I make them out of 3 lines essentially, and then like that, the eraser on top. So it would really have, I suppose, 4 lines with that central space. So let's give this a go again. So let's have a look at doing that, that, and that, and then these going outwards this way, which does make it feel a bit more pencil-like. They're a bit distorted in shape because we're looking at the points, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a finer pen because I've got quite a small space to work with. I haven't got a smallish, very small space, but I want to get the detail right. We can go that way. And then that does look like pencils, I suppose. And I think by filling these sections in, that I quite like high contrast. And ignoring the really awful messiness there. Pop that there. So I suppose it's like four of these sort of put together around a square, isn't it? Because we've got 4 triangles. So let's do that one more time. Actually, what I will do is pop that in, and then let's have a look. So what I'm doing here is I've made the outer little semicircles lower, shorter than the middle one, the taller one. And I'll just do that. And I think this one will be perhaps the nicest of them all. There we go. So it is like 4 pencils pointing to the corners. And I will just curve those outer ends. And then it is like we've got 4 pencil shapes there. And I will just pop a little square in here, perhaps in the centre, just to fill that space a bit. Part of me thinks it'd be rather nice to, oh gosh, I could end up filling all of that in, but that's an option. Okay, so let's have a look. What about if I have a circle in the centre? Let me have a look. I'm just going to put some pencil guidelines in. So these will be my points. And we'll have these pencil shapes perhaps going like this, like this, like this, this, and like that. Ooh. Oh yeah, and that one. Okay, and then pop these in like that. Different, but you can see if I took one of these smaller squares, in fact, let's draw one of these smaller squares, because what I did essentially was, instead of using these, I took a wedge out so it looks more like the point of a pencil, and then I used this to put these shapes in. So what I've done here is to put 4 of these smaller squares together. Oh, looks like we're going to be colouring this one in, which is fine. So this is just one of those corner sections there. And I'm going to, instead of putting these in as lines, I'm just going to put them in as dots there. So that is quite akin to any of these, really. So that's been an interesting way of going forward. What I haven't done, oh yeah, because these ones point inwards, all the others point outwards, don't they? So we've got the pencil points here. And I think what I do for that is just alternate them in terms of colour there. So that's interesting. Can I think of anything else to do with a square with these? Let's split the square in half. But again, this is just really only having two triangles put together. But it is nice to get these ideas going. That's how two of those could go together, and that's quite nice. Yeah, it is really two of these, but by drawing it in a square to begin with, you get a much greater spread of these points, which is an interesting kind of thing. They do look very flowery, and I know that when they're put together, you're going to, if you rotate them round, you'll end up with some interestingly shaped flowers. I can't think of anything else to do other than, instead of using, you know, these lovely rounded bits, is to go more spiky, you know, and so on. Yeah. Okay. Let's go for a different shape. Oh dear. Yeah. Because wherever I put this shape, this on the edge, it's always going to be semicircular, which doesn't quite work. But perhaps if I pop this in the middle, and again I'm going to split this into two and just see what happens here. So again, if I take the idea that pencils have mostly got three sections, we end up with, oh, we're just going to end up with a flower. Why couldn't I have seen that? I think this could be an example of a fragment that Angela can't get to work in a circle. Have a look. That'll be a first, because I think I've managed it with all the others. So how about if I pop two in like this, so essentially I'm popping these fragments in, and have them going that way. So that's an interesting one, and I'm just going to pop that in as a fragment. The other one I drew, that first one there, I mean, colouring these in could be quite fun thinking about it, because So I'm using that idea of getting the central one to be bigger than the ones on either side. And let me just use a finer line pen to add these lines in. And that could almost go. That makes something quite interesting. And I'm thinking that if you did 7 of these, you've got a rainbow. But you can pick these out, each section out as a different colour, which could be quite fun and interesting. And I'll just pop black in the middle there. Okay, so that was interesting. And then as I was thinking about that, I was thinking, okay, let's go with the central thing. And this started off as kind of an uneven kind of shape. So if we pop that right the way around the inside of a circle, and we can perhaps join some sections in. Well, it looks like there's a hole torn round. There's all kinds of things there, isn't there? And it's just struck me that that looks more like you're looking at the point of a pencil. So if you can imagine looking down on the point, what you would see is something, well, you could see something that's faintly spherical. You'd see the coloured tip in the middle, perhaps with a circle around it, and then possibly some way in, we'd have the pencil sharpened lines like that, and then these lines that radiate out, perhaps something like that. So that is a different way of looking at it. This is the sharpenings, and I'm moving on to pencils. But of course, a lot of pencils, not all pencils, but many are hexagonal in shape. So if I take that as a way of dealing with this, perhaps, and we could have that as the kind of shape that goes there. Or we could do as is in the other idea and have them all kinds of higgledy-piggledy like that. So that's quite interesting, and how you fill that in. So that was a bit of fun. That turned out quite nice. It's been completely different. I've not come across anything like this before. I actually prefer this randomness in the circle or in the hexagon than I do over here. And I'm going to try it now in a square once again. Just to see how that could relate. I haven't done a very randomness kind of thing. But again, that's quite different. It's interesting. Okie dokes, other shapes. I think what approach I take would depend on the particular shape. Something like a teardrop shape is very akin to a triangle, and I'm going to do that kind of shape on it because I can. And now it looks like a weird shaped pencil, especially if I pop that at the end. Isn't it? That's a bit of fun. There we go. Let's go for the totally random. Now this is going to end up looking like one of the motifs I use for strange sea creatures or botanically, you know, inspired motifs in my work. So this one is familiar to me, but I've got here in a completely different way. So from that to that, who'd have thought it? So that's quite interesting. Okay. You do get, have you seen the carpenter's pencils? They're often called, which are they've got a sort of like an oblong lead in the middle, or, you know, rounded oblong lead in the middle. But they sort of like have a hexagonal shape to them. So yes, we're now drawing pencils. So just because I can, because my mind's gone on to that now. So that's a different kind of shape that can be used, as well as, and I made that more hexagonal, but we could use this. Again, this is a favourite kind of motif of mine, is using these as kinds of seeds or strange things floating around for filling. But if I add the lines in, and perhaps weight the ends to give that sense of perhaps curving or petally shape there, and that creates something that's a bit different. And yes, I know I've got an odd number of lines there. Again, it's because, well, I can. And if I take this one, I'll draw this one again. So that's my inner lead. This then is the bit you get left around it, and then I can perhaps put that shape in and then draw a border around it. This is something I often do when I'm drawing, is I will start with the central part and then I will build from the outside in. I find it a lot easier to do than to build, sorry, I build from the inside out rather than the outside in. I often do that. I often find it easier, and it helps with placement of things for me. So that's another way to get something that vaguely resembles this in a different shape. Actually, that's really quite nice. I haven't used one like that before. So that'll go in my, that'll be something that crops up in my work at some point. So yeah, so I think I'm going to finish here because I think I've done as much as I can for now. And let's go ahead and find some, I've got a nice orangey colour in the background. So rather than using that blue again, let's go for a browny colour. I've got a reddish brown here. So let's have a look at adding some shadow to some of these. I'm going to use a brownish colour today. just because I can. So with this one, I'm just adding that colour there, and perhaps in the tip of it. So that's quite nice. This one I'm going to add the colour there, and I think just here, perhaps actually just round the sides, to be honest, would be good. That seems to work quite nicely. Okay. This one, I'm going to pop the shadow in the middle of these and leave a highlight round the edge. Not sure whether that works in any way, shape or form, but that'll be all right. Okay, this one, I'm definitely going to pop it down the centre. Try and keep the darkest colour contained in the centre of each petal. So that'll be interesting. This one I'm going to pop shadow right at the base, the petals, and that'll create quite a strong, I think it will, a feeling that the corners are dipping away and this part here will stick up. I'm not sure whether that works because I'm too close to my patterns here. This one, I'm tempted to pop shadow in here for these sections. That makes it feel that these are sticking up, doesn't it? And I'm going to pop some shadow along these lines. Really could have done with sharpening my chalk pastel. There's really fine lines and using a finer tool to on paper stump, whatever. But that creates something that's vaguely interesting. This one I said is the one where it'd be fun to use different colours. So let's have a look. This is where it's going to get messy, isn't it? I'll just do a couple of them. So I've got a yellowy colour. Let's go for a reddy. This is a reddish orange colour. So that'll be all right with the yellow. Even mix them a little bit on the edge. And you get the idea, I'm sure. Let's go for a greenish colour. I've got a green here. Should work over here. Gend. It's probably this one will be best. And so on. So that would be an interesting way of working that. Okay, what colour is that? That's quite a darkish green. I really want a blue. Keep going for greens. We want blue. So I have blue there. And perhaps a purple. Got purple there. And we can pop a purple in there. So that's a nice way of bringing that to interest and life, I think. I think so. But you know, we're all different, aren't we? We all like different things, so it's perfectly fine for things to be done in a different way. With this one, I'm going to pop shadow right the way around the edge, but I'm going to make it darker and thick. You know, a thicker layer, a darker layer right at the top to cast a shadow right the way inside, but very dense around the edges, but not so in the middle, to give it that feeling that we're looking through a hole perhaps. Whereas with this one, I'm going to put the shadow right the way round this shape and see if I can get the outside to set back, or our mind to perceive it as being further away than that, well, quite flowery shape in the centre now. Okay. And I think that's just about it, because everything else is pretty much the same. You know, we can create shadows right the way around the outside of motifs like this. And yep, I've gone back to my bluey grey. Okay, or I could pop shadow around this inner square here. Just to lift that up. Let's make that float above. So it's just playing with things and seeing what happens. This one, definitely is that need to get this just under those outside bits perhaps, and then just a little bit more around there, so it feels that we've got this is a bit further back and enclosed. So I think that's as much as I'm going to do with this one. I hope you've enjoyed our little coddywomple this morning, and a look at this particular pattern. It's proven interesting to me. I just put my pens there that we've used. Perhaps not as many variations as I normally do, but it's an odd one in some ways to you, because you get it in your mind that it looks like pencil sharpening, sort of with a pencil, and off you go. But I have begun to break that idea down here. And all of these unusual, uneven inner lines, as you were, you take this and put it round the inside edge. Or what I haven't done is pop it round, yeah, the inside edge. So if we do it with a teardrop shape, you can get all of these unusual shapes and pop that in there. Leave it as it is, or I'll pop one of those in there. It's nice to have that central point to aim for. I think we could just pop lines like this, and I'm bending them to give some movement or a sense of volume to the inside part, or leave it, or the other way. Is instead of joining the lines to the central point, is to decide on adding lines perhaps from the parts of this wobbly line that are closest to the outside edge, possibly, and so you end up with something like that. So it gives a different feel. It's the same thing, but how different do these three feel? And yet it's the basic way of constructing is the same. This one is the most like this. Yeah. This one is very simplified. This one is a bit different. It's more like, I suppose it's more like these, where it's almost like you're looking down the end of a pencil. That idea would work with any shape. If I take a leaf shape. Make it as crazy as you like. In fact, I quite like that kind of crazy line. Reminds me of lichens. And again, you know, it's either going, I'm not quite sure which way I would like this. I think I'll do it inwards. And again, I'm joining the lines from the part, using these joining lines to the parts of these lines that are closest to this central space. That central motif there. As if something is pulling those bits in. Almost like you go from this kind of idea. And imagine we've got a thread pulling that there and attaching it, so it would pull different parts, different tensions, different, you know, closenesses, and others that would remain at a distance. So that's an interesting idea. So yeah, that works nicely. And when it comes to the unusual shaped fragments, like, you know, the Pangea fragment, Pangea, reticulum, then it's perfectly placed for this kind of thing. Either left as it is, the way it looks like, it actually reminds me of an amoeba, a drawing of an amoeba, one of the single-celled organisms that I certainly learned about in biology. One of the very first things you learn. In fact, one of the very first things I learnt was how you draw an amoeba, so that you knew what you were looking for when you looked at them in a microscope, which always seemed a crazy way round because it takes that sense of discovery away. It did for me. Well, yeah, it looks like what I've drawn. Whereas I'd prefer to have a look and draw what I can see. So either way that would work. And of course, shadowing. This one looks almost like we're looking at the top of a mountain, you know, with the lines going up. But if you did the lines inside, it would look like things are dipping down. So I was going to finish this a few minutes ago, but obviously I said I didn't know what else I could do, and suddenly everything goes whoosh. Ought to know this by now. So I'm just going to say thank you very much for joining me. I hope that you have enjoyed this little look at Sharpenz today, and some of the variations I've come up with, and that you'll give them a go and perhaps try some others of your own, because you may have been looking at this and going, oh, do this, Angela, or what happens if? I can't read your minds. So you'll have to do those yourself, and perhaps if you show them on social media, either on the 7F5R Challenge Facebook group or on my social media, tag me in it as Angela Porter or Artwyrd, depending on which social media you use, and I'll get to see it, and I'd love to see if you can come up with other ones. So until we meet again, take care, look after yourselves, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now. Bye.